Welcome to Caring Community with your host, Jay West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcome. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi everybody, welcome to Caring Community. I'm Jay West, your host, and my guest is Paul Madsen.
Jay, good to be here.
Good to see you. Paul has his own show right on the same network.
Right here in River City.
Yeah, what's the name of your show?
I have two shows. One show is
shows.
called Behind the Words TV, and that's where I interview authors, go figure.
Okay.
And the other
You
version...
haven't interviewed me.
Well,
what's up with that?
You'll have to be on my show.
I've only done 5 books so far.
Well, okay, you're in.
You have to interview me 5 times now. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, that's a lot of books.
I have 2 shows too. What's your other show?
Well, the other show is the Grow Your Biz show,
Okay.
and that's where I interview entrepreneurs and people who started their businesses and things like that. That one came out of the world of, I was a recruiter, staffing person, headhunter for many, many years, and I decided I was going to coach people on the air on a show, and I called it the, what was it called? That Career Dilemma show. But I ran out of people to coach, and I found out that I started coaching everybody to have their own business, and so it became Grow Your Own.
How many shows have you done on your other one?
Well, combined, it's about 130 some.
Okay, so we're kind of in the same ballpark because I have my other show, but my other show is zoomed from my house to Houston.
Oh, okay.
And it appears on networks down there and stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're big time.
Yeah, well, I don't know how big that is. Nobody knows me down there. So, well, we did live down there. Few people know me. But anyway.
Okay.
So we had the, I want to say pleasure. It wasn't the pleasure.
Yeah.
So we met at Grieve Share, and you had a significant loss in your family, as did I. Right. And we happened to be in the same Grieve Share class. And you want to just talk about...
Well, do people know what Grieve Share is? You might mention that.
Yeah, Grieve Share is a program for people who have had a family member or a close friend die, and then it's a 13-week video interaction talk with people who are going through the same thing you are, where they've lost a husband, a wife, a child, a parent, close friend, or whatever. And I highly recommend it. I wasn't sure how I was going to... when my wife first passed, I was told multiple times, go to Grieve Share, and I had, for me personally, my story is different than yours, and you'll share yours in a second. I had 10 men who surrounded me for 3 months, literally, and just ministered to me. And then I went through grief counseling at Lifegate Church here in town that was offered to me. And then Sharon Zender approached me about Grieve Share. So I actually did 3 different things to help me that first year through the process. Why don't you share your story, tell about your wife and your daughter if you want.
Just on Grieve Share, I since we share that, and it's interesting that I think a person has to be ready for Grieve Share or for a grief group or grief therapy or whatever. I know a lot myself, and people I know also, when they first lose a loved one, that they're not always ready. I mean, some of us like to just isolate. Some of us are angry. And the last thing we want to do, especially men, and we'll talk about this, is to talk about it.
Right. Yeah, my first 2 sessions at Grieve Share, I sat there silent and I said nothing.
I remember.
And I was super quiet, and I had tears, and I said, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. And I went home and prayed, and God said, the best thing for you is to actually talk, because you're going to help other people in the process. And actually share. So the next time I came, okay, I'll share a little bit, and from there.
But see, that's interesting, because you are a minister, and yet you didn't minister to yourself. You wanted to withdraw, you didn't want to talk, and yet you make a living almost of listening to people and talking with them and sharing with them.
I had been through those 2 processes. Again, those 10 men whom I know very, very well, I had talked thoroughly with them for 3 months. Some of them came to my house and for 3 hours at a time, 3 days a week. So I had done through lots and lots of talking. Then the grief counseling, I knew the counselor at Lifegate, and so that was...
Was that one-on-one?
Yeah, that was one-on-one. Okay. But then to get to a Grieve Share, where I didn't know anybody in the room, sharing my story with total strangers seemed awkward.
I understand, and it does. And you and I went through it, and there's about 25 people in the group or so. It started that way anyway, and yes, at first it's very especially for
It's
guys.
intimidating.
Well, you know, you don't want to talk about it, and you don't want to rip that Band-Aid off and cry in front of a bunch of strangers.
Right. Yeah.
But yet, by the end of the group, at the end of the classes, tell how we had bonded about a group as a group.
Well, you go ahead and share
Okay.
that. You're the guest. You talk.
I'm interviewing you.
You are interviewing me. It's like role reversal.
It's a
Mike, we got this backwards.
It's a habit. It's a habit.
Mike's the producer. Sorry if you don't know why I'm saying Mike. Okay, go ahead. So
We just became real close as a group.
Right.
I think part of it was the first time a lot of us were out of the house or into the public because of COVID and all that. But and so there was that enjoyment of getting together as people. But then when you share your most intimate trauma for all those weeks, I mean, and it's not talking all the time. There's great videos and things like that.
Right.
But you become close, and we as a group got together several times socially as a group.
Yeah, because our group ended just as we go into Thanksgiving and Christmas, so it just seemed to flow naturally because a lot of us were going to have the first Christmas without our spouses.
Absolutely.
And so it was hard, and so somehow coming together, we had 2 or 3 of those, and you had one at your house, I had one at my house, and there were others, And then, like Bill Bowes, he and I really connected. Bill and I meet every other week. We still meet. We're meeting today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we meet just for accountability and sharing, praying, and talking about some of these issues and other things that are in our life as well.
Sure.
So friendships were forged also out of that.
Oh, I agree so much. Well, you asked about my story. My story is that in 2020, I've tried to shy away from the word I lost someone because we know where they are,
right?
And they're not lost, but we lost them off this planet.
Correct, yeah.
We lost them out of our daily lives.
Right.
My daughter, age 32, died in August of 2020.
What was her name?
And she had a life of some heart and lung issues, and we always knew she wasn't going to make it to age 50 because of her health issues. But just because you know something doesn't mean you feel it and realize it.
It doesn't even matter. My wife. How old was your wife when she died?
In her 60s.
Yeah. 60. So Diane was 63. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have a friend here in town. His wife died 2 months after my wife. His wife was only 37.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, and I was just talking to him at the prayer breakfast a couple of weeks ago about that.
There's no time anybody's ready. But that's what I was going to say.
If you're 92, you're not ready.
You're just not. Yeah, exactly. And you may be more logical at that point.
Right.
But she died lung disease pretty much at that point because of. I won't go into all her long drawn-out surgeries and she.
You and I could talk for hours about hospital time.
I think you have the world record for hospital visits. I'm not sure.
Diane was there 153 days.
That's a lot of days. That's half a year.
Yeah, it's half a year. Yeah.
And my wife was in various places for 7 months, so I understand how that all works. Anyway, she passed away, and then 9 months later. My wife died at age 61 of complications from diabetes, and she had kind of a slow decline as well. And so I had the 2 deaths within 9 months of each other, and that was a lot. Yes.
Can't imagine. Lots and lots of friends died in the last year, 30-some. It still doesn't relate to a daughter and a wife.
Yeah.
Cousin.
Well, there's no good stories. My story is no better or worse than anybody else's. I tell the story of a teacher I know who lost her daughter to cancer at age 20s, early 20s, and the mom went to a mom's grieving group, and at that group were the mothers of, one was a mother of a 3-year-old that died tragically, and another was a mother of a 2-year-old that died tragically. And so, no matter how old.
Right. No, I have friends too.
He's just going to rip your heart out.
He was in a car accident as a teenager, and 2 of his brothers and sisters and his parents were killed instantly. He was not killed, but he lost 4, boom, just like that.
4. Wow. Yeah. I don't know how you recover from that. I mean,
he actually doesn't. Every Christmas, it's just he relives it every Christmas. It's still hard. We've prayed for him. and it still just comes up.
How can you not?
It was Christmas Day or Christmas Eve Day. I forget. It was one of those two.
Oh, and that's even worse.
Yeah. So
everybody's out there happy and all
no
that.
matter what your story is, I've discovered when I've been sick, I can always find people who are sicker. When I go through something, I can find people who have gone through something worse. But we have similar beliefs about the Bible, about bringing comfort, about bringing aid, and that's part of what Grief Share does. Really, it brings aid. A lot of the people on the videos, they're people you would know. Some of them are famous, some of them are not, but they all went through loss, and they're telling their story on these videos about the process that they went through after the loss.
Right, and I think the benefit of videos and Grief Share are there's so many stories that everybody in the group can relate. All the live participants watching can relate to something.
I mean, if you walked in and you didn't have a loss, you would say, "Oh, that's horrible. They lost a child. They lost a parent. They lost a spouse."
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, it's like a weird, unique club that I suddenly got thrust into that I didn't want to be a part of.
Yeah,
I never wanted to join this club.
Nobody wants to join that club at all.
Nobody wants to. Yeah.
That's right.
So what do you want to share about?
Well,
I know you've written a book, but we'll get to that in a minute. What do you want to share about?
Well, it's just that I think the kind of the backstory of the book. I was at a different grief group. I mean, we're pretty fortunate if you do have a loss of a death in your life. Look around. There are so many groups and organizations that serve people in that situation. Use them. Try them. Benefit from them because they're so helpful. I went to one through Heafy Hoffman, DeWark and Cutler mortuary, and Sharon Zender hosts that once a month. And that's always got new people in it. It's a club that keeps getting new members. And I was going to the group, that group for myself. That's the mortuary where both of my girls went. And the point is, Jay, that after one of those sessions, I ended up talking with a woman. I call her Marge, older woman, and she had just lost her husband suddenly. And she wasn't near him. She wasn't with him when he died. Right. And she was so sad about that, and she beat herself up, and she was, just over and over, just couldn't forgive herself for that. And there was nothing she could have done anyway. Right. But that's not how she felt. Anyway, she cried, got very emotional, and I listened. That's all I did. And afterwards, she composed herself. She gave me a big hug and thanked me profusely. I didn't do anything. Right. Jay, I was at that group for me. I was there to serve my grieving needs, not hers. But guess what? That felt good. It felt really good to listen to someone else, to help someone else. Right. Even though I was there for me, it felt good to be helpful to someone else.
I always bring my Bible, and last show I didn't use it, but
you got a verse
relates
to that?
I do. I have a verse that relates to that, and I want to share it.
Knowing you have a verse that relates to everything.
No, that's not true.
It's a well-worn Bible.
My wife gave me this Bible.
Oh, yeah, it's very special.
I mean, some of the pages are taped in the back. So 2 Corinthians says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation," and it goes on, "that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." So what I tell people, I say, we all go through something. We all go through stuff, and we're going through something, we're going to something, but we comfort others with the comfort that we've been comforted. So like right now, I'm praying for a friend of mine, and his daughter has a brain tumor. Well, I've never had a brain tumor, but I take the comfort by which I've been healed of cancer and other things, and then extend that same comfort to her. I don't have to have a broken leg to minister to somebody who has a broken leg. I don't have to go through a horrible car accident to minister to somebody who's going through a car. I just take the comfort by which God comforted me and then apply it to their situation. And that's what you did for that lady.
Well, yeah, I mean, we overthink it sometimes. I don't know. People say, I don't know what to say to someone who's just lost their wife or their husband or child or something. And the best answer is to not say much of anything.
Absolutely. There were times, Jeff Booth was a recent guest on mine, maybe 3 shows ago, he did the worship at my wife's funeral, and he came over multiple times to my house, and sometimes he would sit there for an hour and a half, and I would just cry. He said nothing.
But it's really nice to have someone there.
Somebody there when I was going through
imagine
that.
crying all by yourself.
Right. And I had plenty of those times to do that too, as you did too.
Oh yeah. You still do that, of course.
Yeah. So, I learned a lot. I learned about comfort. I learned about care. I learned about people just you can lose a job and just be devastated.
Yeah.
So,
there's all sorts of divorce.
Any kind of losses, divorce. Yeah. All sorts of things. So.
All sorts of forms of grief out there, aren't there?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book.
Well, and
he's got it here. Show it.
This
Hold
is
it up.
Men Grieve Too is the name of it. We worked.
Why did you choose that title?
Well, and that's kind of the whole story. The continuing on with the story about Marge. I said, well, gee, I want to help other people, and I'd written a few other books as well. And I said, man, I think maybe I'd started journaling. They tell us we're supposed to journal, and my journaling was not sophisticated or organized, and it didn't even have a picture of a sunset on the front. It was just random scratches. But I ran with that ball, and I said, maybe I could write a book about this. Maybe it'll help me to write a book about that, and I help other people as well.
Right.
Well, I went home and looked on Amazon under grief books. Thousands. And the world does not need another book on grief, Jay.
Right. Probably not.
It just really probably doesn't. But I needed to write my story or my version. But at the grief groups I was at, one with you and the one on Sundays, I realized that I looked around and said, there were 5 of us guys at the grief group and 20 women at Grieve Share.
Right.
Similar ratios at the one on the mortuary. And I said, where are all the men? And the men who do go to these don't talk as much. Right. And I just got to thinking about that and studied a little bit more. Right. And I found very few books, Jay, on grief for men. So that's kind of where the name came from. I started with the idea of a book called Men Don't Grieve, but that didn't work because the book is about men who do grieve.
Although the reality is, when you say, where are the men? Women outlive men statistically.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's why there's so many women there, and they lost their husbands or fathers or whatever.
But like you, me, Bill, and others, the group, again, it's a club I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, you don't want to be in that club.
You do not want to be in that club.
No, you had a tough loss of your own and lots of hospital visits, and it's just not a good club to be part of.
No. Where can they get the book?
Well, of course, it's on Amazon and .com. There's even I have a QR code on a bookmark. It's on my website, growmedia.com.
Okay,
you can find a link.
We'll make sure to put that on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it'll be on the show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so, it's out there. It talks about different types of grieving, male grief, and it relates to the tools. There's a nice level on the front, the whole idea of keeping things on the level here after a while. I was going to tell you the story about the picture. When you said Paul C., you threw me off there.
Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
The picture of Monica.
I didn't know your middle initial was on. I could have seen it on the front. So
yeah, Monica Simpek of Monica Simpek Photography did the photo shoot with me, and
I know Monica.
Do you know her? You know everybody.
She's part of my Transformation Omaha team. So,
oh, great! Yeah, well, she did a good job, and I was showing on my phone to a different friend some of the pictures Monica did. And Monica did such a good job that my friend said, "Is that you?" So I call Monica a magician, not a photographer.
Yeah, there you look like, I don't know whether you look like a TV producer, a coach for the Chicago Bears, or a political candidate running for office. So,
oh no, I hope I look like just plain old Paul, because that's who I'm supposed to.
Let's take the word old out. How about just plain?
Oh, there you go. Well, with you and I, we're familiar with death. Old is a good thing, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, the longer you have with them, the better.
So, and we talk about tools in the book. I mean, the tools are symbolic for different types of grief. I mean, an example is what I call a sweeper, and that's the guy who, how you have you're sweeping the floor and you got the dustpan, and there's always that little line of dust that won't go in the dustpan. And if you have an open rug around, you lift up that and sweep that under the rug. Symbolic, of course, to us men who tend to deny that we just lost the love of our lives or something like that. And so that's an example of one of the grieving types.
How long were you married?
40 years.
40 years. So
Yep.
we were just 1 year ahead of you, 41.
Oh,
so
wow, okay.
Bill was, we mentioned before, he's married 37 years.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been interesting.
It's
Learning curve is really, and you know, they talk about grief coming in waves and stuff, and I didn't know what that meant when I'd hear it. Well, I know what it means now, you know.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
just-
You know, you think you're through something. I mentioned that in the book. It's not original. A lot of grief authors talk about the fact that, you know, you go through some steps and then you think you're maybe through that step, and then months later something will trigger you back to that. I mean, I was driving down the road not too long ago, and I went past a place where my wife and I, Lisa, picked out the brick facade for a house we were building.
Right.
And that was 35 years ago. And I've driven by there many times since she died.
Right.
But that time I drove by and I'm in tears thinking about us walking around the brickyard there.
A similar experience. Diane and I met at Concordia University in Seward and went to college there and everything else. And it was last year, I don't remember when, maybe last summer, last fall, driving around the campus looking at it. And I got to the place where we had our first kiss. Man, I just lost it there, you know.
Yeah,
So
those emotional triggers.
Yeah, so.
I have a section in the book, Men Grieve Too, called Tears. How many tears today? And I have a tears moment, I call it the formula. It's an acronym, and each one, T for instance, stands for triggers. And you had the trigger right there of that spot, that meaningful spot.
I learned too, every time I cry, this just sounds really stupid, but my glasses get all spotted up, you know, and I go, why are my glasses? Oh, I was crying, you know, and I had this thing, I don't know, I just thought one day where our bodies are like 90% of the water, and I thought after the first 6 months, I said, surely I've lost 50% of my water, you know, because the amount of tears was just horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, they're few and far between now, but at that point, it just was like nonstop.
Yeah, well, it's part of the process. It's good for you. There's studies that say, I mean, both the physical shaking or whatever is healthy, and even some say there's some kind of acidic things in tears themselves even.
And, you know, and I don't know about you, but the era I grew up in, my dad was a football player, a rough guy, not rough as a father, but, you know, professional football player, a coach also. In those days, real men don't cry.
Right.
You know.
That's
that's a lie, okay?
Yeah.
Real men do cry.
Yeah.
And, you know, it used to be real men don't wear pink. Well, now we know Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October, all the sports guys wear pink, okay?
Yeah.
So a lot of things, some things say, you know, culture is bad, but a lot of things in culture are good too.
Yeah.
They bring about truth to the forefront, not storefront. Well, storefront too.
Yeah.
Storefront, forefront, whatever. I don't know what I'm
front.
saying. I'm just the host, okay?
The front.
Yeah. So.
Well, you know, you talk about macho guys, and that's kind of behind the book as well. You know, John Wayne, don't say very much, and buck up, Pilgrim, and they'll rub some dirt on it, and, you know, and walk it off, and all those kind of male things. And I just wanted to be able to, for guys to know that you don't have to grieve alone, and you don't have to not cry. You can show your feelings. This is not a.
And you can also, let's say it this way, not cry when everybody else thought you should cry. I just did a very large funeral at King of Kings. There was 1,000 people there,
Wow.
and I got up in the front. At the beginning, I said, you know, different things are going to happen today that may trigger an emotion, and some of you may laugh, and some of you may cry, and some of you may sit there and have no emotion and wonder why you're having no emotion. And you might be laughing, saying, I shouldn't be laughing at a funeral, and the person next to you is sobbing. All of that is okay.
Yeah.
You know, all of that is okay. You have freedom to be you in your grieving process.
Right, and that's the whole thing, is that there's no rules about what you should do nowadays. There maybe used to be, I don't know. Jay, in the fall, in October of 2022, I'm hosting a retreat for men who are grieving, and it's called Never Grieve Alone, and nevergrievealone.com actually. And the point is that men can get together.
Are you hosting this locally?
It'll be down in Ashland at the Bible Camp in Ashland. It's very beautiful, modern.
What are the dates? You want to tell everybody?
October 1st, Saturday, October 1st, and it's over on Sunday, October 2nd. Yeah, and got all the paperwork done, and it's all set up, ready to go. And about promoting. It's so men can be together. You had a wonderful gift in those guys that came to your house and were there with you.
And they came independent of each other. None of them know the other.
Oh, is that
one
right?
No, it wasn't a planned thing.
Wow.
Some of them didn't even know each other.
Wow.
Okay, it was just men that I know in the community who just said, Jay, if you need some help, I'm there for you. And some of them just called and said, I'm going to come over today because I think you need help today. And I was like, yeah, come on, because I need help.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's what the whole...
No different than if they had said, you need your wood cut up, you need your lawn mowed, whatever. They showed up for emotional support. So.
Did what they needed to do to help you out.
So it was a God thing, you know, it was really a God thing.
And that's the whole idea behind the retreat, because I think isolation is a big thing for us guys. I mean, there were times after the deaths, I didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to do anything, just sit. I just sit.
Right.
And I just want men to know that they should never grieve alone, nevergrievealone.com.
Right, yeah. So good advice. 3 or 4 minutes left in the show. Anything else from the book you want to share that just pops in your head? Or
Well, back to the tears moments, you know, the trigger, we all have the triggers. And for me, we lived in Omaha, Nebraska for decades, and I couldn't go anywhere because every place I went, oh, there's that restaurant, oh, there's that doctor's office, oh, there's that school, oh, so-and-so lived over there, oh, we went to this movie at that place that time. And it's just a cacophony of non-stop screaming memories and triggers.
Right.
And so the second part of the tears formula, the E, is the emotion, just that whole emotion that's triggered in there with you and as you go along. And you know, the A is of tears is to adjust to that. I mean, and if you're driving in your car and you're crying because of that restaurant you went to and had a great time, and the teenager next to you is on his cell phone, there's trouble brewing there. Yeah. So A is, it's time to adjust. You know, recognize your situation and adjust. The rest is
I've experienced that. I was, you know, just a few weeks ago, I was at a restaurant here in town that Diane and I went to a lot. We had weekly date nights, but that was one of our top 5 or 8 restaurants. You know?
Sure. Oh yeah.
And it was like, okay, I remember the time we sat at that table and that table and that table, and the occasions and everything is all flooding back, and I'm with somebody else.
No.
You know, I can't even bring it up. You know.
No.
And it's like, and nor would you want to. It wouldn't even be appropriate. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, but so it's just an. So you know, if you haven't grieved yet, you're going to. Okay. Everybody has loss. Nobody lives forever. And it might not be a loss of a person. Your house can burn down, and you lose all your possessions. You lose all your memories, your pictures. You know, you lose your job. There's all sorts of things that you can lose, and you thought you had a security there or whatever. You invest in something, it goes, you know, belly up. You know, whatever. I mean,
there's lots of forms of grief, aren't there?
Yeah, there's lots of forms of grief, but for the people, it's really personal.
Yeah.
And our encouragement, Paul's and my encouragement is, if not Grief Share, there's other groups out there, but that's the one we went through. That's the one we met at. I'd encourage you, if you're dealing with something like that, reach out to some friends, pray about it if you can. I don't know what your beliefs are, but pray about it. God will answer your prayer. Even if you don't believe in God, he'll still answer your prayer. And he'll come through for you. And allow yourself to be ministered to, because you need it. Okay, it'd be like knowing you have a major disease, like let's say diabetes, and never being treated for it, you know, and just think, well, I can tough this out and I can make it, whatever, you know. It's like, you're not going to make it. Eventually you're going to crash. Yeah. So our encouragement is, read a good book like his. I'm going to hold it up again. Men Grieve Too. Get this book. You'll be glad you did. Paul, thanks a lot for coming to my show.
Jay,
God bless
thank you. Blessings to you. And I know you're about a year out now, from a little more than a year out.
A little more than a year out.
Well, me too. And doesn't get any better, does it?
No, not really. Thanks for joining us on Caring Community Day. We'll see you next week on the next show. God bless you. Bye-bye.